On this episode of Carnage, we're going to do some upgrades to our V8 Lexcen. We have a Toyota Lexcen wagon and we put a V8 in it, a quad cam V8, a quad cam Toyota V8, and then we added a turbo as well, and it makes over 700 horsepower at the tyres. That's right, it makes a lot of power, it goes really fast, but one thing it doesn't do is stop. It doesn't stop at all, all right? It is really bad when it comes to brakes. In fact, my dad's old ute, my dad's 1968 Valiant ute with unboosted Valiant brakes, outbrakes this by a fair margin. This thing is terrible when it comes to stopping, which is scary when you're doing 133 mile an hour through the quarter mile. So brakes are kind of important and it doesn't have any. So we're going to upgrade those and we're going to do a couple other upgrades of this and hopefully take it to the Optima Streetcar Challenge. That's right. We're going to take this to Optima, where some of the best and toughest modified street cars, best all-rounders, you know, cars that can go around corners and brake and run fast. Yeah, we're going to challenge them with our sleeper wagon. Yeah, it's going to be fun. But anyway, let's talk about the brakes. Right, let's have a look at what we're dealing with. Because the quad cam V8 is so wide, we had to lose the brake booster, and there lies the problem. We've unboosted brakes and this particular setup, it's just not working for us. So we're going to look at an electric brake conversion and see if that solves our problems. And hopefully it should do the trick. Let's have a look at what we got. So what we have here is an electric power brake setup, all right? It is not Hydro Boost, which works off power steering fluid. It's not a vacuum booster setup where, you know, they run an electric pump to create vacuum or anything like that. There is no vacuum here. This is an electric power brake setup and it's been sent to us by Kyle's Conversions. Now, they highly recommend these setups. They've been using them for a few years now, and Kyle's actually a bit of a 1UZ fan himself. He's got a tough 1UZ ute that makes over 1,000 horsepower at the rear. I mean, it's a built engine and everything, but it makes some serious power. So anyway, I was talking to Kyle about this and he reckons these setups will be perfect for what we're looking for. So we've got a master cylinder here, all right? It runs basically a pressure line into the rear here, which helps boost the brakes. All right, we have our rear and our front, and yes, I have that in the right order. All right, the rear brakes are here, the front brakes are there, and then we run a pressure line into there. And that's the same here. We run a pressure line into this block here, just into the bottom. We run a brake line there, and then there's a return line here off the bottom of the master cylinder, and a return line here on this unit. So we run power to this unit. We just bolt that in there somewhere. Run power to it. It's already got a wired up relay and everything. There's 3 wires basically, power, earth and an ignition switch. So other than making up some brake lines, this should go in really easily and hopefully give us boosted brakes today. That'd be great. If not, tomorrow. I'd be happy with that. I think because we're going to be working up the rear and the engine bay quite a bit, let's pop the bonnet off. It's only 2 bolts. It's really easy to do. So we'll pop that off and make it easy to work on. So this should be relatively simple. We have our Wilwood master cylinder there. We have to replace that. The new master cylinder though is a fair bit longer, I think. So we're going to have to move our power steering reservoir, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. We'll find a new home for that. But hopefully we just need to make up a couple of little short lines here from our proportioning valve, which we'll try and keep in there. So make up some new hard lines and then mount our pump unit down here in the battery area basically, or the old battery area. We can relocate some of this stuff because it's not actually, you know, bolted in place at the moment anyway. So mount our pump unit down there and then run a hard line and a soft line for the return line down to the pump. Should be pretty simple. It's just an overflow bottle for our overflow bottle, just to stop dropping fluid on the track if it should happen. Might just pop our intake pipe off just to make some more room. Bit of mandatory shifter action. At least I didn't spill all of it. Let me suck this dry. That's what she said. So hopefully that makes things a lot less messy when we crack these brake lines. But yeah, the boys at Max Performance have lent us their sucking device. Works well. Here we go. Okay, let's see if the other one fits. Alrighty, slide you in. Just under 38. No, that's definitely bigger. That's significantly bigger. So we do have one minor problem, and that is that our adapter block here, which fits the wheelwood cylinder perfectly, the hole in there is just a fraction too small for this one. So we're gonna have to open it up to this size. Not all the way through, just needs to be opened up on basically the front end. So about that much. Right, so we have opened up the hole in our adapter plate. I used like I made a plate, steel plate, with that I bored out to the right size, and used that as a basically a guide for a hole saw to open it up in there. So that worked all right. It fits up all right without the rubber on it. It's a little bit tight with the rubber, but I think with some silicone spray we'll be able to put it on there, tighten it up, and it'll fit fine. So let's get that back in the car so we can get our master cylinder in and make up some brake lines. Okay, I think it's in. Wow, that was actually more of a mission than it needed to be. But it looks awesome. Now we need to make up brake lines, mount our pump, run a line or two, do some wiring, and it'll be all done. Tomorrow. I need a beer. So we are back in the workshop and it is totally miserable outside. The summer we never had has been and gone and we're well on our way into winter. But we have our master cylinder on the car, and so now I'm going to have to make up some brake lines. So we'll make up just some short lines, one from here to here, so rear brakes to the master cylinder. Now this master cylinder is a little bit different. That is the rear, that is the front, and then the pressure line goes in down the back here. So we need to make sure we run the brake lines correctly. So rear to there, front to there, and then pressure line down to where we're going to mount our little motor slash pump arrangement. Yeah, so let's get to making those. To make our brake lines, we're going to be using our ProFlow double flaring kit. It is nice and simple and works really well. So we'll mount that in the vise. So I'll start off by cutting off a short piece of our brake tube. Working with the big long tube is problematic, so we will set that up, lock that there, and let's push that all the way in and lock it down. So that's what we call operation 0, so basically setting it up in the tool. We rotate it to operation 1, 3/16, and then we just do our first operation. And we rotate around, operation 2, do our second operation. And there we have our first double flare. Now the important bit. Put your fittings on before you do the next part. All right, we'll start with our first fitting, like so. This is going to be for there. So we marked our length, we'll cut that off there, and then we'll flare that end after putting the right fitting on there, and hopefully it should be the right size. That is brake line number 1. Right, so that little line is in and it's on. Now just got to tighten it up. Right, line number 1. That was the hard one. The shorter they are, the harder they are. All right, next. Damn, that tool works well. I've got to say, 20 years ago I wouldn't even thought of making my own double flares, but these tools, we are spoilt these days, I've got to say. All right, let's cut that one off and make up our second line. We'll see if I've screwed that up or not. So I stuffed up my bend on that one, so what I've done is I've cut this end off, grabbed the fitting, put it on the other end of the bend, and I'll see if I can salvage this piece, otherwise I'll just have to cut it off and start again. That's alright. Brake line is cheap. You can always go back and do it again. As you can see, it doesn't take a lot of time either. Alright, set it to 0. Tighten it up. Tight. Alright, OP1. OP2. More flare. Alright, so I've had to re-bend that out a little bit just to create room, so we've got room to do our flare. That's the problem with working with little lines, is sometimes your bends are too close to the fitting, but we'll see how we go with that. There's our 2 short lines. Now we've got those lines on, we need to mount our pump arrangement and then run our high pressure line down to the pump. So we need the pump location first, so let's mount that. Alright, we'll just slip this in here. That's what she said. Oh my god. Oh, too old for this. Right, so the pump is rubber mounted, so it will move around a little bit, but we have that tightened to the panel. Now we've just got our wiring, so we've basically got to mount our relay, which is already pre-wired, and we have 3 wires. We have an earth, we have a switched 12 volts, so that just means it activates the system when we've got 12 volts, and then we've got power, so we'll have to run some power to that. And as you can see, it's a big thick cable, so it needs to have a good power connection. So there's a 40 amp fuse in the little fuse holder here. Now I've just got to run some sort of wiring connection to that. So I'll probably run it to our little cut-off switch here. And then, yeah, earth and switched power. Easy peasy. So attach that wire to there, to our little cut-off switch, which has become a pseudo distribution block for the front of the car. And then we can cut and join that. There's our main power feed. So we've got our main feed to our pump there. Now we've got to find switch 12 volt. I think I've got some in this plug here, so let's have a look. Alright, there's 12 volt there, there's 12 volt there, and there's 12 volt there. Now let's turn the key off. Alright, no 12 volt, no 12 volt, but we've got 12 volt there. So if I take that middle pin, I think we'll have our switched 12 volt for our pump. Then we'll have that, we'll have the earth. Let's do that in the morning because I want to go home. And we're back. Doing the wiring. Got up these last couple wires for this pump arrangement. So we'll do that and then we'll do our hard line and our return line. This should all be working today, hopefully. All right, I'll flare this before I bend it because it's going to need quite a tight bend to get up under that pump. So we'll flare it first so we've got room for that to move and then fall off. God, I love this thing. Works so well. All right. Here's the fun part. Okay, so I've got to sort of come out of there and around. This is going to be a fun one. So I've got it cut pretty much to the length, or close enough to. There is some wiggle room there. We'll slide our last fitting on. We'll flare that and then we'll make a 90-degree bend to go into the master cylinder, and then this part is still can be bent up and I've left some room to do that. But yeah, we'll flare it, then bend it. So we've got our hard line bent up and it's loosely in place. It is screwed in at both ends, so that's good. I'm going to try and find, I think I know where I can get some mounts that stick to the body and then clip around the line. I'm going to check on that, see if I can get them. And now we're going to make our, I call it the return line, but I don't think it really is. It's kind of the reservoir line. So it's the line that takes fluid from the master cylinder down to the pump. It's the low pressure line, so it doesn't need to be anything too substantial. You know, just some of this E85 safe hose I think will be fine. So that line feeds the pump, and then the pump transfers it into high pressure and then feeds it back to the master cylinder. So yeah, I've just got to dig up some lines and fittings, and should be almost all the way there. Anyway, I need to do a quick trip to the speed shop. Right, so I'm back from the shop. So I'm going to use that on the bottom side of the master cylinder so I can run a 90 degree, because I want to keep a constant downward angle to the pump. Don't want to have any whoop-de-woos in there. So yeah, just a nice constant fall to the pump. And with having the straight down fitting, I think we would have ended up with a bit of a loop and then a bit of a climb back up. So we'll do it this way. So hopefully I can get under here and screw this fitting in. So put that on, cut it to length, success. Chop, chop. Hassan, chop. So we have all our lines done, well, all our brake lines. Now we've got some problems, and one of the problems is the master cylinder is a lot longer, well, a fair bit longer than the Wilwood master cylinder, and that means it's bumped the power steering reservoir out of position. It was mounted kind of there, but now it needs to move. I might be able to get it down there, and it is still above power steering pump height, but the top of like this fitting is going to be below the top of the power steering, so it's going to run slightly uphill. It should still work, but we'll see if we can make that happen, because if we can't make it happen there, then we have to do some major rearranging, because it can't fit anywhere else. It's as simple as that. The other alternative would be to convert it to an LS400 style power steering setup, which runs the reservoir right there on top of the pump. It means we would have to change the intercooler piping, which will be a pain in the balls. There's no doubt about that, but it could be a way to go, because we know we have to replace the power steering pump at some point anyway, because it's not in the best condition. Anyway, so that's a problem. The other problem was that the rod on the back of the master cylinder was a bit short to reach the pedal. All right, so when we got the kit originally with the Wilwood master cylinder, it went onto there, and the rod was long enough that that would then go onto the pedal. There's our pedal. So that would sit onto there, and all was good with the world, all right? So the rod reached into there, threaded in, that was fine. The problem being that the new master cylinder, the rod's a bit shorter, so the rod ended there, about 3 mil short, which is not great. Like, you know, how do you make the rod longer? Yeah, well, so I went and saw one of our neighbours who runs a small engineering firm, and they've made us up that. How good is that? So, makes it long enough that our new rod can fit into there, so it's about 25 mil longer. Still goes over the pin. Looks like it'll do the trick really nicely. So they have done an awesome job in that. So there's comparison, old and new. Sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know. So yeah. So there's a solution to that problem. So Matt's going to dive up under the dash, install that, install the pedal, and I'm going to sort out the power steering pump. Maybe we'll get it done today. I don't think we will, but we're going to get close. All right, here you go, Matt. Right, well, Matt has the pedal all attached under the dash. I've got it all sorted up here, up top, and so it's time to whack some fluid in our reservoir. Let's have a look inside this thing. Right, well, there we go. So we've got reservoir here to feed the pump, and then front and rear brakes here. So we'll whack some fluid in that and start bleeding the system. Hopefully we'll have brakes shortly. Let's bleed the brakes. Joy. Rain, rain, go away. One of my least favourite jobs. All right, pump it, hold it. All right, pump it. Hold it. Hold it.
Oh, it's a deep burn. Oh, it's so deep. Ah.
Hold it. Hold. Hold. Right, so now all our brakes are bled. It's time to do the actual pump unit itself. So we'll get our wheels back on and we'll bleed that. So there's a little bleed nipple here on the end of the, we'll say it's a distribution bar because it joins the two sections. So we'll put our little hose on there. Make sure that's on tight, yep. So what I'm going to have to do is get Matt in there, turn the ignition on, which should then power the pump, and then the pump will basically push pressure through, and when we crack that open, it'll bleed fluid through the line. Once there's no air, lock her off, we're ready to go. All right, hit the switch. Oh, helps if I give you power. The red key. Alrighty. Try that. Alright, turn it off. Well, that wasn't loud at all, actually. I was expecting it to be quite a loud, buzzy motor, but not very loud at all. All right, let's just try that again. I just want to see if any more air comes out. So again, oh yeah, a little bit more air. All right, off. Check that. Still plenty of fluid. All right, I think we are ready to test this. And that's nowhere near as loud as I thought it was going to be. So we're not going to hear that at all over the engine. So that's great. All right, brake test. Let's try it. Oh yeah, it's much better. Wow, that is so much better. Oh yeah, and that's not stomping on it, that's just a nice bringing it to a stop gradually. That's a little bit more firmer. It works really good. Oh yeah, this is going to be great. Yeah, nice. That works really good. Well, that stops awesomely. So big shout out to Kyle's Conversions for helping us out with this electric hydraulic brake booster conversion. It is awesome, I've got to say. Well, at least now this thing has brakes. So now that it has brakes, we can probably take it racing again. And you're going to see all that on a future episode of Carnage.